But the trail dips low when the quiet cracks appear, soft as dust, easy to miss, ready to multiply. The plan climbs strong, carries hope up the slope, every forecast shining like sun on early snow. But the valley hits hard when alignment slips, small steps drifting, turning into miles you didn't choose. Once sits tall, bright-eyed on the ridge, team smiling, believing they see the same horizon. But week 6 sinks deep in the shadows, when tiny tensions widen into canyons. It's not the market that moves the mountain, not the wind, not the cold, not the climate itself. It's the friction beneath the boots, the unseen fault lines shifting under every decision. Friction grows fast, rising like a sudden peak, steeper than profit, sharper than any forecast. And revenue falls low when the drift sets in, quiet at first and loud enough to echo. I've walked that line, stood tall on the ridge, thinking the view meant the path was solid. Then watched it drop into a valley of confusion, feeling trapped inside the plan I built myself. But mountains aren't the enemy, blind spots or see the friction early and the climb turns clean. See it late and the valley steals your time, your momentum, your year, your revenue. If you wanna rise instead of drift, to climb the ridge instead of slide the slope, come in function my map and I'll send you the guide to read your terrain before week 6 hits.
All right, everyone, we'll be getting started in a couple moments here, just waiting for everyone to arrive. We'll give it about another minute and we'll get ourselves started. For all those that are just now arriving, we haven't quite gotten started. We've probably got about another 30 seconds and we'll get ourselves started. So hang in for just a little bit there. I already see some people who are coming in. I see John Lane. Hey, John, how you doing? Thanks for coming out today. One of the things I will be asking just to make this a super high value use of your time is find the comment box and type your name and, well, more importantly, type where you're connecting in from. I'd love to know where you are, and also so you'll get the most value out of this session by doing that. Okay, let's go ahead and get ourselves started here. Um, all right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Friction Map Live. My name is Vinay Raman. Today, we're talking about mid-market firms, specifically one firm. So you can watch and see over my shoulder and see what is the title of our episode, or this particular episode. The Q4 signals that break plans. It's a live $15 million execution risk map. Basically, you're getting a chance to see over my shoulder and what an organization looks like before they get into 2026. Before we get started, I'd like you to get familiar with how this LinkedIn Live works. To get the most out of your time, I want to customize it, make sure that we are answering questions. So start by finding the comment box. It might be in the bottom, it might be off to your right-hand side. Go to the comment box and tell me what city you're connecting in from. I will use that as we converse here, as I ask questions. I'll be able to ask questions of you, so we'll tune what we're saying here. I want to make sure that you're able to see what I am as we look at this organization. It is interactive, but I will tell you there's a bit of a delay between when you type something into the comments and when I see those LinkedIn Live comments. So I will get to them at break at certain points in time throughout the course of this deck. I'll stop periodically to answer those and make this interactive. So I already see John Lane. Thanks, John, for chiming in. Glad to see you, John. If you can share where you're connecting in from, I would appreciate that. Everybody else who is joining as well. So let's go ahead and get started into, say, John, Raleigh, North Carolina. Thanks for being with us today. Look, at your level, decisions can't rely on just hunches and gut feel anymore. You need actual signal, high fidelity signals, data, and metrics so that you can make good, insightful decisions. And the fact is that mid-market leaders, companies that are on the way to scale, they don't lack judgment. What they lack is visibility into all the factors that make for a good decision. The market moves fast. And the fact is that teams move differently. What actually happens on the dashboards is not what's happening right now. It was what has already happened. So today is about surfacing the signals that the profit and loss, the P&L, can't show you yet, because all of your customers, your board, your team expect certainty in how you respond and how you make decisions. But the market doesn't necessarily reciprocate and give you that certainty. You got to look like you have all the answers, but everything is kind of shifting under your feet. So today I'll show you a little bit about where those hidden frictions occur quietly and tell you how good plans turn into unpredictable results because of things that are constantly shifting underneath your feet. All right. So my name is Vinay Raman, as I mentioned, and my work has always been about decoding complex signals and metrics and data that leaders can start to act on decisions based on. We're not talking about opinions. We're not talking about sentiment. We're talking about facts, figures, data, key performance indicators. I've done work across Fortune 1000 organizations, federal agencies, Department of Defense, Homeland Security, intelligence agencies. I've also worked with mid-market firms. And one of the things that I've seen is that the pattern is the same. Friction always shows up in the data before it shows up in the results. So what if you could actually start to see those frictions before 2026 starts? Because here's the thing. As a leader of an organization, myself included, I don't miss targets because of my planning. I miss them because of the assumptions that I might have, all that I can see. And often those invisible items, those things that are hidden from my view, turn my assumptions wrong. I'd like to hear from others that are listening on the call. Have you ever been blindsided before? Just looking for a yes or no. Have you ever had an experience where you've been blindsided by information that you at the time you were doing your planning or making your decision? Because the friction for an organization hides inside of those assumptions. Remember, if you put something in the comments, it takes me a couple of moments before I will see them. So there's just a bit of a delay. So I want to share this Gartner statistic. It says 67% of mid-market firms miss their forecasts. But it's not because of bad planning, it's uh, because of friction and the visibility into that friction. Mid-market firms rely on dashboards that report too late. And by the time the dashboard catches the issue, the friction already won. So the risk, it's the missing intelligence beneath it. So how do you find that missing information? How do you find the stuff that's invisible, that's within your organization, but it's not necessarily visible at the time of decision? John Lane has chimed in here. John Lane says all the time, invisible drag shows up late and when most unwelcome. I don't like surprises, especially when I'm doing it as the leader and making decisions as a leader, because people's livelihoods, finances are on the line. I don't want surprises. And this whole session is about how do we see those surprises before they show up. So thank you, John, for sharing that. I would love to hear from any others that are on the line. So your instinct may have detected this friction weeks before the numbers confirm it. You had that gut feel. I've heard people many times refer to, I make decisions based feel, but you can't quantify that. You can't always visualize and articulate that. So oftentimes people leave it as your job isn't to guess, it's to see. So how do you see what that friction is? When each leader carries a different mental model, execution drifts quietly. Let me make sure I say that another way. When every leader in an organization, every person who's part of that organization sees how the company is operating, the execution will drift. You cannot execute because the destination is different. This is the part you feel every week, perhaps in board meetings and leadership meetings and team meetings. You feel that there's just some level of alignment that is not there. But how can you show it to anyone? This map that you're seeing right here, we call it a friction map. It makes it visible. If you look at those colored lines, each one of those individual lines shows a member of the same team and how they see what is happening in the organization. Let me ask you a question here. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. If you see all those different colors, just hold for a moment on that gray area, but just the individually covered lines. Does it look like they all see the same exact picture? What do you think? I'll share that gray area is the average. This happens to be a senior leadership team. That gray area is the average of what that team sees. So the places that are in closer to the center are the ones where they all feel more friction. The ones that are closer to the outside edge are the ones where they feel more confidence and strength. You can see greater strength here. You can see greater friction in areas like this. The goal is to be able, by looking at this map, you can very, very quickly understand how the whole team perceives what's happening in the organization, where they see risks and where they see strength. So please tell me what you see when you see this map. I'd love to hear in the comments, is this team on the same page? So I'll tell you, this is, we anonymized a company. This is actual real data. It gives you some firmographics, some information about the organization, but it looks like a lot of mid-market firms. Strong people, highly qualified members of their teams, strong numbers, but there's invisible execution drag underneath all along. So we come back to this map, and what does this friction map reveal? We touched on it a little earlier when we started to say you can see how they see things differently. Now, the team aligns on the goals. We want to increase our top line revenue, for example, but they diverge on their assumptions, what they think is the right route to get there, or what methods or processes they will employ. What do they think is actually the problem behind it? It's difficult to get that in a conversation by just talking through it. Different because different assumptions lead to different ways that they execute, and different ways that they execute leads to different results. So consider this. Misalignment in even two functions increases the execution risk probability by 25% or more. So the question is, if you have this level of misalignment, can you can you afford to have that 25% of execution risk because they see things differently? They have different assumptions, different paths of execution, and ultimately different results. This map, what you see on screen here, shares with you how that risk exists, where it exists, and why it exists. It gives you a roadmap for what you might do next in focusing efforts. And this is what it does for your odds of success. When your leaders see different realities, your real success odds drop quietly. I call this the drift. 6 weeks into 2026, 12 weeks into 2026, there's a frustration level that starts growing because things that we had assumed were going to go well. Many times this has happened to me in firms that I've run, the organizations that I've run. You have people who are assuming that things are going to go right because of our assumptions. But since we had different assumptions, things start to drift, but quietly drift. Because every plan assumes alignment. This map verifies that the alignment exists or not. And when those leaders see different realities, well, you can see the odds of success drop quietly into the 45 to 55% range. They drop dramatically. What if you could see that before you get into 2026 or before you make any other plans? Question for everyone. If you had the ability to see that your realistic chance of success today is 45, 55%, if you could see where there could be potential impediments to your ability to execute, what would do that? What would that do for you in your ability to be able to see that proactively as opposed to reactively? Go to the comment box and tell me what that would do for you. What you see could happen now that may not have been possible before. So consider this. We need to start with the individual execution and friction map. Before we map your whole leadership team, we would have to start with you. And it takes 3 minutes, maybe as much as five. Pretty light touch. But you get instant data based insights and a private look at your own execution tensions, where you have assumptions of strength and where you have risks that you also feel. It starts to share it with you. And if you wait for a slide here, I'm going to actually share with you how you can get that friction map of your own. And why does this matter? Because this becomes your anchor point. Once we know your model, we can start to see where your whole team diverges. If you're the chief financial officer, chief operating officer, a team lead, if you start to find out where you see strengths and frictions, the next thing is to find out how do others compare in how they see the organization. What are their assumptions that are different than yours? What are their assumptions that are the same as yours? Question for everyone. What would that do for you if you could validate what each and every team member on your team sees the same way and sees differently? Because that's going to significantly affect the chances and probability of success. So you're here at step one. This is, and next Tuesday, we have a session. It's an invite session. Once you've completed this friction map of your own, you take this individual diagnostic. We call it the core diagnostic. When you take that individual friction map that'll be sent to you, we'll invite you to a Tuesday event where we'll show you how you can look at your own map and what you can start to see, what insights you can see from. Tuesday is where your individual map becomes your own first set of insights. From there, the team map becomes inevitable because you'll then want to see how everyone else has got assumptions. John Lane has shared a comment here. John says, it makes the invisible drag visible. That is completely correct. If so, thank you for sharing that, John. That is right. When you start to see where others differ in how they see a problem and what is the cause of that problem, that becomes a discussion point. So many times people talk about efficiency, doing more of the same. This is an opportunity to do the right thing. This friction map allows you to start to become more effective in what you as a team start to do because you can see the invisible gaps that exist. And that's what this friction map allows is higher effectiveness so that you can continue to be more efficient. Thank you, John. Thanks for sharing. Uh, I'd encourage anybody else, if you've got comments, please share. I'd love to understand what you think as well and share that with you if you so choose. So why your leadership team must do the core next? Because you might feel aligned. You may feel that everybody on your team believes the same thing as you. I know I have personally gone through, done core values analysis. I've had coaches, consultants who come in to my organization say, let's practice our core values. And go ask your team, can they recite your core values? Of course, we talk about it every week. It's the first thing we start meetings with. But then I ask them to go into a separate room with somebody else and they say, what are the core values? If there's 5 of them, I think we would be lucky sometimes to get even 3 or 4 of them because not everybody's on the same page. They've got different priorities, they've got different perspectives and different areas of focus. This is the opportunity for you to find out where that invisible drag is because leadership teams almost always carry different assumptions. And the only way to see it without blame is to map it. And that's what this friction map allows. Consider this. This is like a leadership x-ray for your team. And this is what the board, if you report to a board, what their board or your leadership team wishes they always had, a quantified view of your execution risk. It's not about culture. It's not about personality. It's about friction, and most specifically, about the ability to execute. I'll leave you with a thought here that alignment isn't emotional, it's structural. It's not a feeling, it's a measurement. If an analogy I'll give that I often use is if you have a car, the front left wheel and the front right wheel. If one is the left wheel is pointing left and the right wheel is pointing right, it doesn't matter how much power you have in that vehicle because those two tires are fighting each other because they're going in different directions. It's why we take our car to the mechanic to get those tires aligned so they're heading in the same direction because the car rolls forward with a lot less strain and friction and effort when those wheels are going in the same direction. So alignment isn't emotional. It's a structural component of the success of your organization. Consider you've built too much to lead with blind spots and not understanding those frictions, not seeing where those invisible drag areas are, and those assumptions are different, is a blind spot. This map shows the real odds of success. So, if this is interesting, to be able to find out, first of all, what assumptions you have, but more importantly, leading to the place where you can see how everyone on your team has assumptions and how they differ from what you see, here's the opportunity. You will, if you scan this QR code or if you go to that link, carmo.net/friction live, again, carmo.net/friction live. If you scan that QR code, go to that link, you'll, in 3 minutes, see your own map. And if you take it today, by Tuesday next week, you'll be invited into a private session for anybody who's taken it, where I'll show you how to read that friction map for yourself, what assumption you're starting with in terms of strengths and risks. More importantly, the gateway into understanding what the rest of your team sees, because we start with you. So 3 minutes creates your map. And Tuesday, you'll get not only your readout that you will see that's private, it's sent directly to you. Nobody else will see it, only you will. But on Tuesday, I'll teach you how to read it, how you can look at that and start to understand for yourself what is possible. There's no obligation, just your data. You'll be emailed a PDF within 10 to 15 minutes of when you click the submit button. Just scan the QR code or go to the link. I'd love to stop for a second here just before I finish things up here a little early for us. And that is, what could you do as the leader of an organization or a leader of a team if you could see where everybody's head is at on your team? And that whole process took a grand total of about 3 to 5 minutes. It's the ability to become more effective than you've potentially ever had the opportunity to become, because you know where everybody is pointing and which direction they're pointed at. Please share in the comments what would that do for you if you could see for your whole team where they were pointed and if they're aligned with you or they see things differently, because this gives you the opportunity to do so. I'll put the QR code in the comments in a moment here. But I'll just finish up by saying, look, you've built a strong company, you've built a strong team, and the next stage requires more clarity, not just more effort, more clarity. So everybody sees the same destination. We're all rowing in that same direction. You don't need the effort. You just need clarity on what the picture is. So before the year turns, clarity becomes your advantage. You walk in understanding where everybody on your team is, as opposed to starting the year trying to get everybody organized. Don't practice in real time. Get practice done before you step on the court. Well, I've come to the end of this. I always try to give people a couple moments back of their time and leave time for questions. This is the QR code, which allows you to take the company or the team that you've built and move to that next stage with that higher level of clarity. Because it's not about putting more effort. At some point in time, there's not more effort. It's just the effectiveness in achieving the destination. And this is almost the cheat code or the route map, the roadmap to achieve that, the shortest path to get there. Consider on Tuesday, we're not going to be reading everybody's friction map. We're only going to be using an anonymized copy so you can start to see how to read it. Scan that QR code if you'd like to get your own friction map, and 10 to 15 minutes later, you'll have that PDF in your box and you'll be invited to our Tuesday. I am going to end our LinkedIn Live. Thank you for the participation, John, and all others who've joined us throughout the course of this. Hopefully, this leads to you having the most effective 2026 possible, because you know that everybody's pointing in exactly the right direction. Thank you so much.